my fellow weirdos, welcome back to my channel. I know it's rare to see my face on here because I never have time to film / edit, barely have time to read, but you know, I do still exist and I love you guys and I will come in here and give you content whenever I have the opportunity. With that in mind, let's just jump into it. Today we've got a little wrap-up video, which is all the books that I have read and listened to in the past couple of months or so. And just to let you know what I read, what I thought about it. And as usual, if you've read the book, if you have your opinion about it, I would love to hear it down below because I always love to get other people's opinions on something. Similarly, if you have books that are along the vein of the ones that I like that you want to leave in the comments, I always love getting recommendations, and I have read books that you guys have recommended and it's always worked out really well. So yeah, let's just jump into it though, with that in mind, shall we? We've got The Mad Women's Ball by Victoria Mass, and this is one I got in a charity shop for 50p, and I was drawn mostly by this beautiful cover, and when then I read the back I was like, yes, sold. Essentially we are in Paris in 1885 and we have a institution. I'm going to butcher this because I am terrible at French. I did 6 years of it in school and I can't speak a word. Salpêtrière, let's go with that, asylum, which is basically a women's institution where there are women who have, yes, they have genuine mental health issues. But there are also women who have things like epilepsy that wouldn't have really been understood medically at the time, and women who are just troublemakers and their families wanted to shove them out of the way. So you've maybe got ladies of the night who have no other place to go, they cause issues, they shove them in there. You've got women who their families don't like the way they're getting on, they cause a scandal, they get pregnant, whatever. You put them in here, they disappear forever. There are institutions sadly like that all over the world at this particular period of time and for far too long afterwards. Steps are character Eugenie. Is it Eugenie or yeah, Eugenie? Eugenie can speak to the dead. She can see them, she can talk to them, she can sense them. And when her family find out, they stick her in this institution to rot, essentially. And there she meets Geneviève, again, probably butchering that name, who is the head nurse, and this nurse believes so vehemently in what she's doing. She thinks she's making a difference. She's very black and white. She's very matter of fact. The world is this way. When you die, you die. Very, you know, straight down the middle, follows the rules, good at her job. Dependable, you know? Not that she's disliked by anybody in the asylum. She's not going to be the one you're going to be best friends with. You know what I mean? She's not the most empathetic person in the world. Eugenie speaks to her dead sister and passes on messages that Geneviève has no doubt in her mind that Eugenie is 100% right. She knows this woman can speak the dead, and her dead sister says, you know, trust Geneviève, Geneviève will help you get out. And Eugenie does, and it's them trying to get Eugenie out of the asylum. And I really enjoyed it, I have to say. It's a really, really well-written book. It really speaks to the time, to the treatment of women back then and today. The idea that women who are problematic in some way, who don't fit society's norms, just ostracize them, get rid of them. And that tragically still happens in all sorts of forms today, you know, whether it's from the family cutting them off right up to, you know, people murdering family members who don't meet the standards. So whilst it's very off its time, historical fiction wise, it sort of speaks to today as well. I enjoyed the characters as well and the character development. There are points where Geneviève kind of irritated me because she's a bit back and forth, and I get that she's logical and she doesn't want to believe that this is true and she's kind of fighting it, but at the same time, when somebody is telling you all this stuff they could not possibly know, and you gotta kind of at that point go with it. But I really enjoyed it. It's not the longest book in the world, as you can see. You can finish it pretty quickly. And I would say it's a solid 4 out of 5. Really good piece of historical fiction. Not horror, which is what I normally go for, but it does have that paranormal aspect. And I do just sort of love that kind of Victorian era in general. So really, really enjoyed that. I'll definitely have to read more by Victoria Mass. So next up we have The Quiet Stillness of Empty Houses by L.V.Rusell. This is published by Quill & Crow. Quill & Crow, I flippin' love them. They specialise in gothic horror, which, as you guys know, is my absolute favourite, and that's what this particular book is. It's like your kind of traditional gothic horror, and it centres around Theodora, who is a young woman who she comes from a family of wealth, but the wealth is gone, the house is deteriorating where she lives, and she has to be a governess in order to make a living, basically. And she ends up taking a job at a house where she will be the governess to a little girl called Ottoline. Love that name. And it is Broken Oak Manor, a house filled with secrets. And she meets the very handsome, dark, mysterious man of the house, Cassius Thorne. And she soon realizes when she's there that there is something wrong with this house. There is some secrets. There are things going on that are not explainable from natural, you know, there's something supernatural going on. And she's trying to protect the little girl. She ends up falling in love with Cassius, who is a married man. She's kind of fighting that, but simultaneously love is love, you know. So you've got the kind of a bit of a love story. You've got the supernatural elements, and you've got this kind of sort of discovery of who she is, who she wants to be as a person. Theodore is kind of like own circle and is her own arc, which I really enjoyed. I loved this, I have to say. I loved this. The title kind of gives away a big element where the actual houses themselves are characters in this book. Her childhood home and then the home that she ends up working in are both characters in themselves. She's able to speak to these houses. She's able to sense the dead, spirits, things like that. So she's already open to paranormal. And she can sort of sense when houses speak to you. And she's quite perturbed by the fact that Broken Oak, the one she moves to, it's like almost choosing to stay silent, like it's waiting to tell her something. I love that. I love the idea of the houses being a part of the story to the point that they're almost characters, because for one of my favourite subgenres of gothic horror is when you've got the big old gothic haunted mansion. That's like my favourite, like Haunting of Hill House, that type of thing. So I really, really loved that particular element. That is a solid 5 out of 5. It was really, again, not a big read, really quick. You'll want to find out what happens, so it's a real page turner at points. I loved it. Okay, next we have Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. I absolutely loved her book, The Salt Grows Heavy, which is the first one I read from her. And this one, oh, full disclosure, this was kindly sent to me by Quill and Crow Publishing in exchange for a review. And this is Tor Nightfire. This was sent to me by them. I loved The Salt Grows Heavy. So I had really high expectations for that because that was a big old 5-star for me. This one I unfortunately did not like as much as I liked The Salt Grows Heavy, because that book literally had me shedding tears. I love that book. I still really love this though, but it was not as good. This is a very short one. We've got a group of people who, I say friends, they're childhood friends and they've been friends for a very long time, but everybody seems to have beef with everybody. There are resentments, issues, a lot of underlying tension, you know. Two of them are getting married, and they'd always wanted to get married in a haunted house because they were super into supernatural stuff when they were younger. So they go to this house out in the middle of nowhere. It's a beautiful, beautiful house, which, despite its age, doesn't seem to have succumbed to the degradation that you think it would have, having been alone for so long. And the story around this house is essentially that a bride's husband died on his way to get married, and she had her wedding guests basically like wall her into the house, and because she wouldn't go on without him, and she walled herself up in this house and died in the walls, and now it's supposed to be haunted. And she's always kind of looking for her husband. She's looking for a groom, and you can probably imagine from there everything goes a bit downhill. You've got the very real world issues between these friends, ex-lovers, lovers, a lot of fighting. Simultaneously, you've got these spiritual paranormal elements. I really enjoyed it. The way that Cassandra Khaw is such a beautiful writer, the language she uses, she makes the most disturbing, gross things sound so beautiful. It's like, I don't know how to explain it except that she's an artist and the paintbrush is her typing words, okay? She just paints a beautiful image and she does it very poetically. I love the way that the language and everything. What I found about this book was a bit jarring. It's like almost like you've got the middle section of the book missing. So you've just got all the bit with the friends, and then it just goes, oh, paranormal. And then all hell breaks loose, and then people die, and it ends. It moves very fast at the end, slower in the beginning, and it feels like there's a big chunk missing. I would have liked this to be a lot longer. I would have liked there to be more of a build up towards everything that happens in the end and make it a little bit more gradual. So that's why I would give it probably a 3.5 out of 5, whereas Salt Goes Heavy to me was a 5 out of 5. Finally, for my physical reads, we have Gry Hendrix Says How to Sell a Haunted House. I'm a big Gry Hendrix fan. I think that he is fantastic at thinking of horror in really everyday banal contexts. The most famous one you can think of would be Horror Store. You know, it's literally an IKEA. It's not somewhere you think of as being haunted, and the idea of creating a haunted story around it is, to me, genius. So this is another sort of example where you're selling your childhood home, except it's haunted. And how do you go about that? You want rid of your... this is a family who have some serious issues. Let's just put it that way. There's a lot of resentment again, a lot of familial infighting, lots of aggression, and she's having to work with her brother who's like the polar opposite of her, and they want to sell this house because she just wants to move on with her life, but it is haunted and it involves puppets. Let's just leave it at that, which to me are terrifying. Puppets are always puppets, clowns, dolls, scary. I really enjoyed this film, this book. It would make a great film, by the way. It's fun. I think Gry Hendrix's horror is always fun, but there is still those creepy elements. You know, he doesn't go too camp. There's still parts of it that are creepy. So I enjoyed that. I didn't enjoy it as some of his others, so I would probably say it's a 4 out of 5 rather than a 5, but did still really enjoy it. On to the audiobooks. We have 2 for this month. Just going to get my borrow box up here. I borrow my books from my local library. So it's a great resource if you are ever looking for, obviously everybody knows you can borrow a physical book from your library, but you can also now get audiobooks and Kindle reads from your local libraries for free. It's brilliant resources. So first up we have The Phantom Prince, which is by Elizabeth Kendall, Ted Bundy's girlfriend. And it's a story of Ted Bundy, but from her perspective. And I have to say, it was a really challenging listen, because there are, I don't want to be too harsh on this woman, but there are times where I was literally yelling at my radio. I was like, girl, leave him. What is wrong with you? Get out. She has issues of her own. You know, she has addiction issues, she has mental health issues, she has serious codependency issues and no sense of self-worth. She gets all of her worth from being in a relationship with somebody else. And then the fact of the matter is that she does fall in love with Ted Bundy. She loves him so much. And the idea of putting her version of Ted Bundy together with what he did and that version of Ted Bundy that she never personally saw, it's really hard for her to do. And even when she knows at the end, it's confirmed to her that he did these things, she still keeps contact with him, because in a way she'll always love that version of him, which is very difficult for us to understand on the outside. But, you know, we haven't lived through that particular situation. So I tried to be open-minded and empathetic toward her, because in a way she is also a victim of Ted Bundy's, not to the same extent, and she does go to pains to point this out. She's obviously not a victim to the extent of the girls that were murdered or the families of the murdered girls. But she is a victim too, because she was lied to, she was manipulated, she was messed around, he cheated on her constantly. I felt a lot of the times frustrated because it felt like Elizabeth Kendall had like no sense of self-respect. And it upset me, because she seems like she's not a bad person. She's maybe made some poor choices in her life, but she's not a bad person, and she doesn't deserve to be put through what he's put through as a boyfriend, even before you factor in the fact that he's a psychotic serial killer. It's sad that he's able to manipulate her so easily, but then I think that's part of what Ted Bundy was able to do. He was a very charming, very manipulative, very believable person. He could speak, and unfortunately that worked in the favour for him when he was doing what he was doing. It's really interesting to see a side of him that you don't see in all the other documentaries, and you don't see in all the masses of books and media out there about him, to see a side of him that's different. But there's always that sense that it's not real. That guy doesn't exist. It's a show he's putting on, partly because he wants to be that person and he doesn't want to kind of give in to his urges in the beginning, maybe, or maybe it's more just a straight up cover, that he's just that cold-hearted, he just needs a cover story. But whatever it is, it's never real. And what I would say from this, my biggest takeaway from this book is always, always follow your gut. Always follow your gut. Like, if your gut tells you something's wrong with this guy, get out, okay? Because she knows something's wrong. She calls the police like a dozen times, and they keep telling her, no, it's okay. And because she wants to believe them, she goes, okay, it's okay. The police told me it's okay. So the police are annoying as hell in this book as well, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's just listen to your gut, ladies, okay? Finally, we have Murder, Madness and Mayhem, 25 Tales of True Crime and Dark History, which is by Mike Browne. He has a Canadian, he's from Canada, and it's a podcast called Dark Poutine, which I flippin' love the name of that. If you've ever been to Canada, you know what poutine is. It's like a gravy, cheesy chip, basically. And with cheese curds. Not my cup of tea, I don't like cheese and gravy together, but it's a national dish, they bloody love it, and I love the idea of Dark Poutine as the name of the podcast, it's brilliant. But this is 25 stories, which ranges from murder and true crime, through to natural disasters, through to unexplained incidents. The one that always sticks out in my mind is these hikers who, I can't remember where it is, it's somewhere in Europe, but they go up into a mountain. They don't kind of call in the next day. People are like, what's going on? And when they go up, their campsite is torn to shreds. All of them are spread out in different places with injuries, unexplained. Nobody to this day knows what happened to those people. Was it like a Bigfoot? Was it aliens? Did one of them just lose their crap? Or was it a case of they all went a bit mad because of the cold or whatever? No one knows. I love those types of stories because they, as a writer, for me, I want to take them and I want to make my version of what happened. Do you know what I mean? Kind of come up with my own story. So that always just gets my juices flowing. Imagination juices. I'm going to clarify that. Well, maybe I don't know. So yes, I really enjoyed that. I have to say, he's very good at reading it in a very kind of like, he doesn't get emotive. He's like very newsreadery about it, which is good because there are some very emotive chapters. Grenfell Tower is one of the chapters, and living in UK and Ireland, everybody here watched that story unfold, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. And I have to say, when I was listening to that chapter, I just sat in my car and cried. That one was a hard listen to for me, but I really enjoyed it. I like that it was all these different stories. You've got treasure hunters, and you've got volcanoes and tsunamis, and then you've just got straight up murderers, and it's an interesting collection. And the thing that they have in common is they're all dark in some way. So I really enjoyed that. I like that it wasn't just true crime. It wasn't just mysterious stories. It was a little bit of everything. It was kind of like tapas. It is a dark story tapas, and I really enjoyed it. So, I forgot to give a rating. So for the Phantom Prince, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 because it's super interesting, it's insightful, but also simultaneously I have to mark it down because of how frustrating it is at points. That one I'm going to give a 4 out of 5 for too. Really solid, entertaining read, like listening to his voice. So that's it. That is my little wrap up of what I have been reading and listening to lately. Have you read them? Have you listened to them? What did you think? If you have any recommendations, pop all your comments down below. You know I love to hear from you guys. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, do the little bell notification, all that good jazz, because we need it for the algorithm gods. And I'll see you next time. God knows when it'll be, but I will see you next time. Bye, weirdos.